On the pale mint-green dental chair, a little girl clutched her stuffed unicorn. A faint, damp trail of a recent tear marked her cheek as she watched the doctor in the white coat with unease. The numbing shot had hurt. Pulling the tooth would surely be worse. She wanted to go home. Her pleading eyes found her parents, who waited anxiously nearby. As she tried to scramble down from the chair, before her parents could offer any comfort, the doctor spoke. He asked if she was up for a little wager. The young doctor's hair was a startling shade of crimson. Behind his surgical mask, only a pair of clear eyes were visible, and they were crinkling with amusement. He asked if he could call her Harper. A dull, spreading numbness filled her mouth, and Harper nodded. She asked in a small, trembling voice what the bet was. The doctor wagered that she wouldn't even know when the tooth came out. He brought a set of silver instruments closer, his tone light and reassuring, stating his desire to get one last look at the troublesome tooth. Harper opened her mouth as instructed, her gaze still fixed nervously on the doctor. It was the height of summer, and intense sunlight poured through the window panes, setting his vibrant red hair ablaze. It was the first time she had ever seen someone with hair that color in real life. It was extraordinary. How could she not know when the tooth was pulled? It was supposed to be painful. Her thoughts drifted as the doctor continued to examine her teeth. Just as she was about to fidget, she heard the doctor's soft voice. He mentioned a cartoon he had once seen, one about a superhero with long, red hair who got her powers from a magic tooth. Harper had seen it too. Before she could speak, the doctor added in a compelling tone that he knew a different version of that hero's story. She blinked, her attention drawn back to the doctor's soft, bright red hair, which seemed almost dreamlike in the golden sunlight. On the clinic wall behind him, a colorful mural of cartoon animals frolicked. The doctor began to narrate a fresh tale she had never heard. A hidden city, a secret power, a crystal cave, red hair, a villain. By the time she emerged from the world of the story, the extra tooth was already resting quietly on a metal tray. Her parents expressed their amazed gratitude to the doctor, their voices a mixture of shock and delight. They praised Dr. Thorne's skill, admitting they had worried Harper would put up a fight. Dr. Thorne removed his gloves and mask, smiling at her. He declared himself the winner of their bet. The red-haired superhero in the cartoon was beautiful, and the red-haired doctor in the pediatric dental clinic was handsome. Seeing the little girl staring at him in a daze, Caleb Thorne chuckled and ruffled her hair. He offered her a chance to win a rematch, challenging her to bite down on a cotton ball for a full 30 minutes. Harper immediately bit down on the gauze, puffed out her cheeks, and nodded vigorously. Her earnest expression made the adults around her laugh. After Caleb explained the post-extraction care instructions and watched the reluctant little girl depart, the clock on the wall showed 5:20 p.m. 10 minutes until the end of his shift. He sat down at his computer to confirm Monday's appointments. His schedule was Monday through Friday. Behind him, his assistant cleaned the used instruments and reset the dental chair. The day's work was nearly over. From the hallway, the sound of colleagues chatting drifted in, discussing dinner plans. A doctor from the next office, a recent hire, appeared at his doorway and knocked. He remarked on how the little girl had just been tugging on her parents' clothes, insisting she wanted to come back next time, which he found amusing since most children feared the dentist. He watched Caleb's back, joking that it must be Dr. Thorne's charm. Caleb, typing up his daily summary report, responded politely that Harper had been very well behaved during the procedure. The man at the door considered this, then stuffed his hands into the pockets of his open lab coat, affecting a casual tone. He pointed out that it was Friday and asked if Caleb had any plans after work. After scrawling a flamboyant signature at the bottom of the report, Caleb stood up without turning around. He had a party to get to that evening. He took off his white coat, revealing a simple black t-shirt and jeans underneath. From his locker, he grabbed a bag that contained another fresh white coat. The doctor who had approached him was, by contrast, dressed in a meticulously chosen designer shirt and casual trousers, the luxury brand on his belt buckle prominent. The man started to ask what kind of party it was. Before he could finish, Caleb seemed to remember something. He added that he also had to stop by a blind date on the way. With that, he grabbed his bag and bid the other man a brisk farewell. As he left the office, Caleb caught a glimpse of the other doctor's displeased expression but paid it no mind, quickening his pace. He detested the cloying scent of that cologne, which tried too hard to smell fresh. His longtime colleagues at the clinic were aware of his sexual orientation. The new dentist had clearly heard the rumors, but he was destined to waste his time. Caleb Thorne was a discerning man and remained single. He had no interest in people whose intentions were so transparent. He stepped into the elevator heading to the underground parking garage. Moments later, a sapphire blue Corvette sped out of the garage and merged into the dense evening traffic. While waiting at a red light, Caleb glanced at his phone. The screen was filled with new messages. There was idle chatter in a small group chat with clinic colleagues, and a private message from the new doctor wishing him a great weekend. A friend had sent an excited video of the party venue being decorated, urging him to come early. And there was a message from his mother, reminding him not to forget his meeting later. He raised an eyebrow, set the phone down, and looked ahead. The light turned green. The dazzling sports car accelerated away, the warm breeze whipping Caleb's red hair across his cheek, past a single black stud in his ear, revealing a hint of a wild, untamed nature utterly different from the gentle, patient doctor who treated children during the day. It was an unfortunate coincidence. His mother's once-a-month arranged date had clashed with a theme party a friend had been planning for weeks. After some consideration, Caleb decided to make the date as brief as possible. Based on the information his mother had provided, he and his blind date were likely incompatible anyway. It was better to save both their time. His mother, Helena, held a certain reverence for some New Age spiritual practices. When Caleb was a child, a celebrity psychic had done his life chart, predicting that he must never be headstrong in matters of the heart, or he would invite disaster, leading to a lifetime of hardship and sorrow. Consequently, Helena was exceptionally vigilant about Caleb's romantic life. Fortunately, he had spent his student years focused on having fun, never considering romance. As he got older and potential partners became more plentiful, Helena, terrified he would fall into a relationship she couldn't control, began arranging dates for him. The adult Caleb was dismissive of the psychic's prophecy. He considered it a statement of the obvious. Being stubborn in love or anything else could lead to either spectacular success or spectacular failure, with the latter being far more likely. Helena, however, thoroughly vetted every candidate, striving for a balance between what the family approved of and what Caleb might actually like. This way, she reasoned, it wouldn't count as him being headstrong. Considering he had veto power and didn't want his mother to worry constantly, Caleb had finally agreed to the dates. But only once a month, treating it as a way to meet new people outside of work. When Caleb walked into the coffee shop, the man his mother had arranged for him to meet was already there, seated at a table by the window. The man's back was straight, his shoulders broad. He seemed to have a good build and was dressed quite formally. Caleb recalled his mother's words. The Hayes family was in finance, exceptionally wealthy. The family was close-knit. From the parents to the older brother, Everyone doted on this younger son. His personality was described as simple and pure, easy to get along with. In Caleb's translation, that meant overly naive and easily deceived. Caleb disliked this type, even if the man was physically attractive. He took a seat, and the two strangers exchanged brief, polite greetings. The man asked if he had been waiting long. Caleb replied that he had not, that he had just arrived himself. A standard, scripted exchange. Next would come talk about the weather, the traffic on the way over, then an attempt to pivot to hobbies, careers, and families. Just imagining it was enough to make Caleb feel tired. During the subtle, awkward pause where one of them was supposed to broach the next topic, he cut to the chase with a joking tone. He had a short fuse, snored like a freight train, and never deleted his ex's numbers. If the man could accept that, they could go get a marriage license right now. Listening to this blunt self-introduction, the handsome man's expression shifted from confusion to surprise, and then to resolve. Finally, he gave a slow nod. Okay. Caleb, who had been preparing to leave, was stunned and met the man's dead serious gaze. He wondered if he had misheard. But the other man's solemn tone confirmed it was not an auditory hallucination. He then said there was something important he needed to tell Caleb. 10 minutes later, a calm, magnetic voice was explaining that, simply put, Caleb was the villain in this novelistic world. After the man finished speaking, a delicate stillness fell over their corner of the coffee shop. Caleb tilted his head, and a flicker of light slid across the small, intricate snowflake-shaped stud in his ear, mirroring the disbelief blossoming in his eyes. It took a while for him to process what he had just been told. Finally, he thought of something and asked the man who had just delivered this astonishing news about his own ending. The man's consistently composed expression finally showed a flicker of hesitation. He avoided Caleb's eyes, a touch of unease born from what seemed to be a kind and earnest nature. He murmured that the ending was not very good. The man wore a well-tailored, high-quality suit, a luxury watch partially hidden beneath his cuff. His entire posture projected good breeding without a hint of arrogance, giving Caleb the initial impression of someone handsome, gentle, and naively friendly. And, in a word, boring. Now, that sense of boredom had vanished. The man's answer was evasive, but it piqued Caleb's interest. He pressed further, asking if it was bankruptcy, betrayal by everyone, or death. Caleb figured those were the typical fates for a villain in a novel. The man's thick brows furrowed slightly. A few seconds later, he answered honestly that all of the above were included. So, he died after losing everything. It seemed this villain was quite a piece of work. To say such a thing, almost like a curse, to someone was incredibly offensive. The man's gaze shifted from his coffee cup, trying to gauge Caleb's reaction. To his surprise, the red-haired man showed no signs of anger. Instead, he was smiling, a glint of amusement in his eyes. He asked what he did in the novel, what his profession was. The man seemed surprised by the question. He said that in the book, Caleb worked at his family's company but didn't go in often. Caleb considered this and translated it accurately. A trust fund kid who did nothing but chase romance. Then he asked about before that. Where did he work before? As if playing a guessing game, he offered a clue, explaining that he had just come from his 9-to-5 job, one unrelated to his family. Both he and his mother found it amusing to watch the surprised expressions on strangers' faces when they heard his profession. So they hadn't told his date beforehand. The man was visibly stunned. After a moment, he replied that he didn't know. The book never mentioned it. Caleb shook his head with a smile, teasing that he must have read a bootleg copy of the book. What kind of novel would make a pediatric dentist the villain? The temperament was all wrong. A surgeon, maybe. After a chuckle, Caleb cleared his throat and spoke seriously. He addressed him as Mr. Hayes. He admitted that he was now quite tempted to ask him to dinner. That Nashville hot chicken place across the street was excellent. He glanced at the brightly colored sign across the road with a hint of regret. But he respected his ideas and wouldn't waste his time. Besides, he had other plans. He was sincere when he said he quite liked the story he had just told, and offered to pay for the 2 coffees. Before the other man could react, Caleb waved down a server to pay the bill, adding casually that they could just use incompatibility as the excuse. He told him he could tell his parents it was his fault, arrogant, rude, whatever he chose. Having expertly wrapped up the blind date, he held up his phone with a smile and asked to exchange numbers, offering his cooperation in case he needed a more thorough story to tell his family. After a brief pause, the man across from him nodded without another word and took out his own phone. He agreed and thanked him. Soon, a new contact appeared in Caleb's list of unread messages, along with a standard greeting. Leo Hayes. Leo Hayes was the 11th blind date Caleb had met, and by far the most memorable. After all, a person who could earnestly tell a complete stranger that they had transmigrated into a book was a rare find. According to Leo, the world they inhabited was a romance novel with other protagonists. Caleb was just a supporting character, unrequitedly in love with one of the main leads, Luke Sanford. To that end, he had ruthlessly arranged a marriage contract and, in his hopeless obsession, grew increasingly paranoid, committing many misdeeds to obstruct the 2 true lovers. He was the quintessential villain, destined for a tragic end. Leo, as an outsider who had transmigrated into the book, knew the plot. He couldn't bear to see Caleb, who didn't even know Luke Sanford yet, meet such a fate. So he had proposed a contract marriage to avoid the storyline. He claimed to be a workaholic straight man who only wanted to use his knowledge of the book to advance his career and benefit society. The logic was sound, seemingly self-consistent. Unfortunately, no sane person would readily believe such a tale, including Caleb. After the initial shock, as he listened, Caleb gradually understood Leo's true intention. It was a feint, using the symptoms of a classic schizophrenic delusion to scare off his blind date. A masterstroke. As a fellow unwilling participant in these arranged dates, he couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with the imaginative Leo, along with a twinge of regret. Telling a bizarre story about book transmigration to an adult was much harder than telling a story about a superhero to a child. If he had known the seemingly dull Leo possessed such a fantastically strange personality, Caleb wouldn't have been so quick to end the date. It would have been nice to chat as friends. Maybe they could have even gone to the party together. The coffee in his cup was only slightly diminished. Caleb took one last sip, officially stood up, and bid farewell to the man who now seemed lost in thought. He said cheerfully that he had enjoyed their conversation, then announced his departure. Leo looked up at him and replied, "Goodbye." As he walked out, Caleb opened Leo's profile on his phone and habitually added a note. 11. The 11th blind date, hence 11. Remembering so many names was tiring. Numbering was easier. Besides, the nickname sounded kind of cute and he liked nicknames that started with a number. In the fleeting moment they passed each other, Leo caught a dazed glimpse of the sunlight deeply staining that red hair, tracing the sharp contours of a pale profile in vivid light and shadow. Caleb's gaze and fingertips moved together across the screen. Seeing something, the corners of his pale lips lifted slightly. A faint laugh seemed to ripple through the coffee-scented air. It left a remarkably strong impression. The sound of the coffee shop door opening and closing came from behind. Leo instinctively turned to look out the window, watching the figure with the brilliant hair get into a sapphire blue Corvette and disappear from view. All that remained was the equally bold, deep red sign of the hot chicken joint across the street. He stared at the sign, lost in thought, for an unknown amount of time, until his phone rang. The caller was Miles. Leo collected himself and answered, greeting him first. Miles's warm voice came through the receiver, asking how it went. Leo replied that they hadn't really clicked. His voice was bright, tinged with apology, but the gentle expression on his face slowly faded, making him look like a completely different person. Miles asked with concern why that was, if he was dissatisfied with him. Leo adopted a slightly dejected tone, saying that it wasn't that Mr. Thorne was great, but that the problem was him. He was probably too boring for someone like that. A passing waiter stared in bewilderment at this strange scene of mismatched voice and expression. Leo ignored him, his fingers tapping lightly on the tabletop. His brother on the other end of the line laughed, asking why he would think that. He asked if Caleb had said so. Leo, playing the part of a coddled, naive younger brother whose sorrows were always fleeting, replied that he hadn't. It was just his own thought. He then changed the subject, mentioning he had just seen a really cool new car. As a transmigrator still in the exploratory phase, he intended to maintain the original character's persona for now. His half-brother, Miles, had always been indulgent with him. Miles promised to take him to pick out a color over the weekend. Leo expressed his thanks, then sighed, worrying that their father would complain about him wasting money again. Miles chuckled and told him not to worry, that he wouldn't tell their father. It would be a gift from him. Amidst the brotherly affection, they chatted about daily trifles before Miles steered the conversation back to the blind date. He asked if Leo wanted to see Caleb again. Miles was very patient, describing him as a special person and saying he thought they were a good match. Leo feigned hesitation, saying he didn't know and that they would see. Caleb had already rejected the contract marriage proposal, so Leo planned to wait and see before making his next move. He had made the suggestion partly because he genuinely couldn't bear to see the currently normal Caleb meet a tragic end, and partly to proactively secure the dangerous villain at a safe, non-interfering distance, turning a passive situation into an active one. Miles was tactful. He said that was fine, that they should try getting to know each other privately first. As his brother's gentle voice came through the phone, the white porcelain coffee cup on the table stood silently, the warmth from his hand long gone. Leo couldn't help but recall that intense, fiery red hair. So what exactly was the profession of this special, vicious villain? In the book, after meeting Luke Sanford, Caleb had abandoned almost all his other interests, so there was no mention of what he did before. A strange curiosity stirred in Leo. For a moment, he even considered asking Miles, who had arranged the date. As the sweltering summer heat pressed in from outside the window, he ended the call and loosened his tie, undoing the top button of his shirt. He let out a breath of relief, free from the constriction, and reminded himself not to think about it anymore. It was dangerous to be curious about the villain. The phone on the table vibrated twice. Leo looked down. It was a message from Caleb. Caleb, by the way, forgot to tell you earlier. Caleb, you have excellent dental hygiene. 11. Thanks. 11, you too. Caleb only saw Leo's reply after he had parked his car and walked into the bar. The entire venue was decorated to look sinister and terrifying. The wallpaper was stained with what looked like mottled blood. Blood-splattered tools of various sizes, scalpels, chainsaws, axes, hung from the ceiling. Appreciating the homicidal maniac aesthetic of the party scene and recalling the hesitant thanks in the message, Caleb laughed aloud in good spirits. Julian, busy adding decorative fake blood to glasses at the bar, saw him come in and waved him over. Seeing Caleb's expression, he couldn't help but tease him, asking why he was so late and which kid he had been charming. Caleb replied that it was a fun kid. He put his phone away and asked what else needed to be done. Julian said they were almost finished, then asked him to help put up a poster. The ladder was over there. He told Caleb to get someone to hold it for him when he went up. Julian gestured to the ladder, then pointed to his own considerable belly and shook his head, worrying that the ladder couldn't take his weight. Caleb agreed. He climbed the ladder. As someone handed him the poster, Julian looked up from below and asked if the white coat was getting in his way. He suggested Caleb take it off and put it back on when they were done. After parking, Caleb had casually put on the white coat he had brought from home that morning. He was Dr. Thorne again. He said it was fine, he was used to it. On the ladder, Dr. Thorne unfurled the poster. The bar's dim lighting illuminated the top of his deep red hair. The poster also featured the silhouette of a figure in a white doctor's coat. Reflected against a gleaming silver scalpel, the movie's title was faintly visible in the shadows. Scalpel. It was a classic horror film series, beloved by fans. Julian, the bar owner, was a die-hard fanatic. Not only had he named his bar the Scalpel and filled it with movie memorabilia, but he also hosted Scalpel-themed movie nights several times a year. Guests could dress up as any character from the movie. A group of fans would watch the films in a meticulously decorated setting, a cult-like celebration for enthusiasts. This type of event was still relatively rare. Caleb had heard about the party in college, was dragged along by a friend once, and quickly fell in love with the movie. He had come every time since and became friends with Julian. The doctor and the scalpel on the poster were the main elements of the first film, which told the story of a highly intelligent doctor's elaborate and brutal game of revenge. Subsequent films featured a variety of plots and murder methods, but the white coat and scalpel remained the most iconic symbols. When it came to villains, a surgeon well-versed in human anatomy was hard to beat. Caleb finished putting up the poster, pressing the corners down neatly. He stared at the white coat on the paper for a moment, then suddenly turned and asked Julian, "Do I look like a villain?" Julian, his hands covered in fake blood, looked up. Thinking Caleb was already getting into character, he grinned, revealing a ghastly smile. "Dr. D isn't a villain, he's the protagonist." Looking at his blood-stained teeth, Caleb laughed. He asked if the syrup was tasty. Julian shrieked in a high-pitched voice that it was disgustingly sweet and he was about to die from it. Tonight, the scalpel was packed. The street outside teemed with people. The bar's neon sign cast a colorful, hazy glow in the humid night air, looking no different from any other evening. Young people arrived in groups, many dressed as doctors. Others were dressed as various victims from the movie. Amidst the bustling crowd, one doctor with a cold demeanor but striking looks stood out. His friends all wore matching white coats prepared for the event, each with a different surgical instrument in their breast pocket, a clear sign of a group effort. The surgical instruments were plastic props from the movie's merchandise line. To prevent accidents, all guests were only allowed to bring replicas. None of the decorations in the bar were real weapons. Someone solemnly handed a plastic scalpel to their friend, who had become the center of attention, as if presenting a crown. They told him that, based on height, this most important scalpel belonged to him, Luke. Luke Sanford stood motionless, his expression cool, childish. His friends were used to his temperament. Someone immediately slung an arm around his shoulder, laughing. They told him to play along, that he would definitely like the movie, that it was a great way to de-stress. Luke looked at the scalpel being presented to him, still resisting. He said his experiment wasn't. A friend swiftly stuffed the prop into his pocket and pushed him inside without another word. They chided him for being cooped up, asking if he wasn't stuck on a problem. A fun night out might give him new ideas. Even his advisor told him not to spend all his time in the lab. The neon lights flickered across the white coats. Stepping inside was like entering another world. First-time guests marveled at the incredibly atmospheric decorations. Regulars greeted each other and chatted, the place buzzing with noise. When the movie officially started on the big screen, the volume of the crowd rose even higher. Most people there had seen the series. Many even knew the plot and lines by heart. Whenever a character who was about to die a horrible death appeared on screen, the audience would offer ruthless commentary. For instance, in a dark hospital building, a portly security guard held a bag of popcorn and a flashlight tucked under his arm, patrolling slowly. The crisp sound of popcorn being chewed mingled with the jangling of his keys, creating a strange, tense atmosphere. "Dude, stop eating and look behind you. What good is that flashlight? Turn on the damn lights." When the moment the guard fell and a pool of blood arrived, the bar erupted in a crescendo of screams and boos. Julian, dressed as the security guard, sat by the bar with a matching set of keys on his belt, happily accepting the shower of popcorn thrown by the guests. He then cheerfully drew the first stroke of a tally mark on a small blackboard next to him. This was the proper way to watch a horror movie. Amidst the increasingly wild crowd, the only doctor with red hair seemed somewhat distracted. Caleb had attended many scalpel parties, but this was the first time he wasn't fully engaged. On screen, D completed his first trial run and slipped away quietly, leaving no trace but the flash of a white coat in the shadows. Off-screen, Caleb suddenly remembered the story he had heard that evening. The villain in a novel who lost everything because of a paranoid, one-sided love. It was impossible, yet the image of Leo's incredibly serious expression as he said those words came to his mind. Perhaps it was because Leo was an interesting person, but they had parted after only a few words. So, subconsciously, he felt a little regretful. Caleb shook his head, trying to clear away the trivial thoughts. His gaze swept over a quiet area not far away. He turned his head, slightly surprised. Amidst the raucous, demonic atmosphere, a tall young man dressed as Dr. D looked unusually calm, a stark contrast to the surrounding revelry. He was looking down, alone, as if writing something. Caleb moved closer, navigating through the flying popcorn and paper balls. He saw the person was using a plastic scalpel as a brace against his right palm, holding a pen and writing on a small piece of paper. With Caleb's excellent eyesight, he could vaguely make out that it wasn't a phone number or a tally of the movie's dead, but a series of complex formulas that looked like gibberish. A left-handed academic with incredible focus and a fine profile, completely oblivious to the surrounding noise and the person watching him. Caleb watched for a while, first finding it peculiar, then a smile deepened in his eyes. He was often drawn to strange, elusive people and things. In the nearly boiling bar, this strange pocket of silence expanded slightly. After some time, a clipboard with a piece of paper on it was held out in front of him. The young man, deep in thought, finally looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. The man's face was also very much to Caleb's liking, he thought. He said that it would be easier to write with this. The young man hesitated for a moment, then reached out and took it, thanking him. With a better tool in hand, he eagerly bent his head and continued writing, pulled back into the world of puzzles and formulas. A moment later, as if remembering his manners, he forced himself to pull away again. He looked at the red-haired stranger and said he would be done soon and would return it. Caleb shrugged, telling him it was fine, he could keep it. The other was about to look down again when Caleb continued, asking if he had been dragged here by friends. The man replied that he had. Caleb smiled. He mentioned that in 2 minutes D would kill someone with a clipboard, a classic scene. The young man paused, looked at the clipboard in his hand, then at the big screen in front of him. In the end, he went back to his formulas, saying he would be done soon. Caleb looked away, no longer disturbing him. This was a person who stuck to his own path. When the first movie ended and the lights came up, the young man finally put down his pen and let out a sigh of relief. Even his usually cold expression softened a little. He removed the densely written page, folded it neatly, and put it in his pocket. He then found Caleb, who was sitting by the bar chatting with Julian, to return the clipboard. He said he was finished with it and thanked him. Caleb noticed his eagerness to leave and asked if he was going. He confirmed, saying he had to get back to the lab. His voice held a hint of excitement as he murmured that he had a new idea. Before the other turned to leave, Caleb extended his hand and introduced himself. It was a good occasion for making friends. All around them, strangers were exchanging contact information, so his gesture wasn't out of place. The tall young man didn't resist. He shook Caleb's hand, his tone flat. Luke Sanford. As the name was spoken, the dim, swirling lights around them seemed to sway, crashing into a startling dream. Luke Sanford. Caleb's mind went blank for a second. He heard his own voice, suddenly distant, asking which spelling of Sanford it was. Then he heard the other's even more distant reply. Sanford. He had asked the same question when Leo told him the story about the book, because it wasn't a common spelling. He had received the exact same answer. Amidst a hazy, roaring cacophony of noise, Caleb couldn't remember when Luke had left. The thought of getting his contact information had completely vanished. He stared blankly at the dazzling world of light and shadow before him until people cheered loudly. The lights went out again. Julian, about to play the second movie, tapped him on the shoulder, asking what he was spacing out for. He told him it was starting. Caleb called out to him, his voice laced with a subtle helplessness that was drowned out by the laughter and noise. He asked again, "Do I look like a villain?" Julian tossed him a bag of popcorn. Without looking away from the big screen, his answer was definitive. "You're the most handsome villain in the whole place." 5 minutes later, at the entrance of the bar, the neon lights illuminated Caleb's profile. The night wind ruffled his short hair as he stared at the movie poster on the bar's door, at the white coat disappearing into the shadows. After a long moment, he took out his phone. An invisible signal pierced the air, dancing through the grand night. In an instant, it flowed through a bright, shining glass window. Inside, a young man was curled up on a soft sofa, his fingers nimbly working a game controller. On the huge screen in front of him, light and shadow flickered. The game volume was turned up to the maximum. Even though the game room had excellent soundproofing, people outside could faintly hear the noise spilling out. The shootout ended, and an icon indicating task completion popped up on the screen. Leo watched the flashing and disappearing image with a blank expression, manipulating the joystick to drive to the next mission location. He didn't want to be playing games at all. But Miles was home tonight, sitting in the living room downstairs watching TV with his mother, and Leo Hayes was known by the whole family to love video games. Just as he was recklessly driving through the virtual city, his phone, sitting on a coffee table laden with fruit and snacks, began to vibrate. It was a voice call from Caleb Thorne. Caught off guard, Leo's car, which had been driving smoothly, flipped straight off a ramp, tumbling 360 degrees in the air. Amidst the dust cloud from the crash, he answered the call. The last topic of their conversation, dental hygiene, flashed in his mind. It was random but clear. Loud music and background noise came through the receiver. Before he could speak, Caleb's distinct voice came through. "Mr. Hayes up for a late dinner?" The person on the other end had a bold tone, making Leo momentarily picture that fiery red hair. Caleb said he regretted their meeting that evening. His voice was bright and assertive, flowing right into his ear, asking if he wanted to go out for hot chicken. The game room, which had been a source of constant noise, suddenly fell silent. Leaning back on the living room sofa, Leo's mother, Sarah, was still engrossed in an 8 o'clock soap opera. She was beautifully preserved. Her smooth, lovely face showed almost no signs of age. She was talkative, chattering animatedly about the melodrama unfolding on the screen, regardless of whether Miles, sitting at the other end of the sofa with a document in his hands, was listening. She complained about the unreasonable parents on the show, questioning why being poor was such a big deal and why they had to force two people in love to separate. She then turned to Miles, telling him not to be so old-fashioned when he found a partner. Miles pushed up his glasses and replied with a smile. He noticed the silence from upstairs and glanced up. He was 10 years older than Leo and looked much more mature and composed than his naive younger brother, with a gentle, scholarly air. Soon, the game room door opened. A series of hurried footsteps followed, then the sound of a door opening and closing. Sarah looked up, surprised, wondering what on earth the boy was doing. A moment later, Leo leaned over the second-floor railing, holding 2 shirts, and shouted down, "Mom, which one should I wear?" Before his mother and brother could ask, he announced proudly that Caleb had asked him out for a late dinner. Sarah's eyes widened. Without a second thought, she exclaimed, "The gray one." Watching Leo hurry back to his room to change, Sarah's gaze immediately fell on Miles, her expression one of surprise. She remarked that when he had suggested introducing Leo to the Thorn kid, she had thought nothing would come of it. Miles replied in a gentle tone that he had heard Helena Thorn was arranging dates for her son. And since they were the same age and had similar interests, he thought it was worth a try. Sarah muttered that she had a vague impression of the Thorn kid, the one with the red hair. He was handsome but seemed just as restless as Leo. She worried that the two of them together would just run wild. Miles shook his head with a smile, saying they were still young. It was the time for them to have fun. They would mature eventually, so there was no need to worry too much. Sarah conceded that it was true, and it wasn't even certain if they would get along. She quickly let go of her concerns. After saying goodbye to her son, who was rushing out with his car keys, she went back to watching TV. Amidst the lively background noise, Miles also lowered his head and continued to flip through his documents. The light from the crystal chandelier cast shifting shadows, deepening the coldness hidden behind his glasses. In the quiet night, Leo, now in a gray t-shirt, pressed the accelerator of his sedan and drove away from the gated community. The brightly lit house in his rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller, like a warm, happy trap. Leo looked away, his gaze calm as he focused on the road ahead. He knew that in the story, Leo Hayes' blind date with Caleb Thorne was not successful. There was no talk of dental hygiene or a late-night meal. They didn't even exchange contact information. Later, Miles arranged for him to meet others, all with similar profiles to Caleb. Wealthy heirs with no interest in the family business and a strong personality. None of them worked out, and so Leo had narrowly escaped, though, of course, a greater disaster awaited him later. Miles was too meticulous. Under his quiet observation, Leo's every move was constrained. He couldn't show any deviation, couldn't suddenly act out of character. This meant he couldn't do what he really wanted to do. He needed a completely free space, one that appeared logically and wouldn't arouse Miles's suspicion or interference. The wind howled through the open car window. The dim yellow streetlights illuminated a billboard on the side of the road. On the exaggerated real estate ad, a young couple embraced, smiling at a picturesque new house surrounded by mountains and water in the distance. The car drove past. The summer night was humid, and the silver-gray steel pole of the billboard was stained with rust. On a street filled with the lively atmosphere of everyday life, Caleb Thorne stood under a deep red sign, waving at Leo, who was walking briskly towards him. The sign depicted a large, steaming pot of Nashville hot chicken, identical to the one he had glimpsed from the coffee shop that evening. Caleb explained casually that it was a chain, and that he hadn't been lying. The food was really good, especially at this flagship location. He noticed Leo had changed his clothes and couldn't resist a joke, saying he was glad he hadn't shown up in a suit again. Leo looked a little flustered, seemingly not expecting to meet again that night. He explained that his mom had made him wear it, saying it was more formal. Caleb told him this suited him better. He asked if they should go in. As he was about to turn toward the restaurant, he saw Leo's expression suddenly stiffen, his eyes fixed on him as if he had seen something unbelievable. Caleb was confused and asked what was wrong. Leo was still staring at him, an indescribable, complex emotion in his eyes. He said it was the collar of his shirt. Caleb reached up to touch the collar of his black t-shirt and instantly felt a sticky wetness. Looking down, his fingertips were covered in a thick, bright red liquid. On this chaotic night of emotional ups and downs, he had completely forgotten about the fake blood from the party. Staring at the shocking blood on his fingers, Caleb was silent for a moment. He then spoke slowly, asking if Leo would believe him if he said it was corn syrup. Leo's reply came a beat later. Yes. Caleb could hear the lack of conviction behind the word. He thought of the villain Leo had described, the one who had done all sorts of terrible things. He instinctively wanted to explain that he wasn't that kind of person, but a pack of tissues was handed to him first. Leo pointed to his own collarbone to indicate that Caleb had some there as well. So Caleb said no more. After a moment of distraction, he took the tissues and walked into the restaurant with a smile. At the steaming table, the blood-stained tissues, smelling sweetly, were successively swept into the trash. Caleb ordered food and chatted with Leo as if nothing had happened, as if he were enjoying a casual late-night meal with a friend. The restaurant was filled with noisy chatter. Freshly cut chicken tenders dropped into the rich, fragrant spicy oil, quickly changing color and curling up, dry. Square pieces of tofu plunged into the hot broth, slowly changing shape, melting into a completely different softness. In an ordinary moment, Caleb stared at the bubbling fryer where ingredients were constantly rising and falling. He suddenly spoke calmly. "I met Luke Sanford tonight." Leo's hand, holding his fork, froze. He put it down and looked over through the hazy steam. He asked if he was okay. For Caleb, the world had clearly been turned upside down in an instant. Caleb answered honestly that he didn't know, that he needed more evidence. The timing of being told the story and meeting Luke Sanford was too close. If someone knew his personality well, it wouldn't be hard to guess that he would be interested in a stranger focused on solving equations in such a setting. He didn't know what the point of such a deception would be, but the him in the story was too foreign. He couldn't just take Leo's word for it. He asked Leo if there were more details about him in the story he knew, especially things that had already happened and that only he himself would know. Things that hadn't happened couldn't be proven, and things that weren't secrets had no value. Leo listened to him and seemed to fall into deep thought. After a long while, he spoke in a low voice, saying he didn't know what things only he would know. And there weren't many details about his past life. He could only think of one thing. His expression showed clear uncertainty. A very small thing. Caleb waited patiently. On the night of his 5th birthday, he was sitting on the sofa eating cake and accidentally fell asleep holding his fork. In a half-awake state, he groggily saw his mother take the camera his father handed her, stifling a laugh as she took a picture of him. His father took the opportunity to kiss her on the cheek, and the camera shook. So he appeared at the edge of the frame, and the picture was a bit blurry. But he loved that photo. Leo finished speaking earnestly, then added with some hesitation that he didn't know if this was the kind of detail he was looking for, that maybe he had told others about it. His words hung in the air, because he saw an almost frozen look of disbelief on Caleb's face. Everything seemed to stand still. His face, which had been flushed from the heat, suddenly turned pale, drained of all color. Leo clearly saw a bead of sweat slide down his cheek, over his collarbone, and silently seep into the collar of his shirt, which was still stained with a dark red. Took Caleb a long time to find his voice. He asked very slowly if that was something he had told Luke Sanford, if on some future day he had personally told him this. Leo remained silent, lowering his head. Caleb gradually regained his usual tone, speaking softly, as if to himself, if that's true, the future me must have really liked him. Not just liked, but loved. The story behind the 5th birthday photo was his earliest and most profound memory of love. To this day, he had never told anyone. But he had seriously imagined a future where, on an ordinary afternoon, he would be curled up on the sofa with his lover, casually chatting. And he would smile and tell this little story about the little boy with a face full of frosting and the kiss outside the frame, preserved only in memory. Everything Leo had told him was true. Caleb closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when he opened them again, the uneasy pallor was gone from his face. He looked directly at the man with the complex expression across from him, his tone deliberate. He asked if he could trouble him with one more thing. Leo answered quickly, of course. The next morning, the VIP area of the medical checkup center was not crowded. An attendant diligently guided patients through the process. Caleb leaned against a doorway, looking at the checklist in his hand, waiting for Leo to come out of the ECG room. When the door opened and he saw Leo walk out, followed by the usual electronic voice calling the next patient, his mood seemed to calm a little more. After last night's validation, Caleb completely believed the story Leo had told him. However, he couldn't help but feel a sudden sense of strangeness about the world he had lived in for over 20 years, lacking a sense of the reality of his own breathing. Perhaps it was a doctor's instinct that made him wonder if Leo, as an outsider, was different from the people in this world. Or if it was the characters in the book who were different from the Leo from outside the book. He tried to touch that fantastical unreality. But everything was normal. Even though the full report would come later, the results of the other tests were available on the spot. No doctor treated Leo as if he were strange. Leo, walking out of the examination room, looked at the checklist in Caleb's hand and asked what was next. The attendant chimed in, suggesting they could go for the blood draw now, and after that they could have breakfast. She pointed to the phlebotomy station. Leo walked in her direction and was about to sit down at the station when Caleb stopped him. He didn't think a blood draw was necessary. He felt a mix of gratitude and apology for Leo's full cooperation, thanking him for coming today. Leo understood what he meant but sat down anyway. He said it was fine, that he really should get a checkup. This was an angle he hadn't considered before Caleb mentioned it. He watched the nurse tie a tourniquet around his upper arm. Caleb stood beside him, watching, his eyes flickering slightly. The needle pierced the skin. Deep red blood flowed into tubes of different colors, and the unreality slowly solidified into truth. Caleb thought he was beginning to accept the series of events from the previous day. He decided to treat the bizarre novel plot he had heard as a kind of prophecy about his future, the most complete and accurate fortune-telling. The vials of blood were neatly arranged in a rack. Outside, the faint chirping of birds could be heard. The green leaves of the treetops rustled, casting dappled light and shadow. The flowing scenery was all reflected in the red-haired young man's eyes. He got 2 cups of water from the dispenser, handing one to Leo and keeping one for himself. The water was clear and cool, no different from usual. Then he slowly crushed the disposable plastic cup and threw it forcefully into the trash. The first step in defying fate began with refusing the simple breakfast provided by the clinic. Caleb knew a great breakfast spot nearby, just a few minutes' walk away. Leo remarked that he seemed to be very familiar with the local food scene. Caleb replied casually that eating was one of life's great pleasures, and asked if yesterday's hot chicken wasn't bad. Leo agreed that it was good. The morning sun was just right. On the way to the diner, they chatted like ordinary friends. Caleb asked curiously, remembering what Leo had said about him being the worst villain, if there were other villains besides him. Leo replied that there was his brother, then added with precision that it was Leo Hayes' half-brother, Miles. A flash of surprise crossed Caleb's face. He finally understood Leo's indirect connection to the story. He asked if he also liked Luke Sanford. Leo said no, that he liked the other protagonist in the story. Caleb thought for a moment and commented fairly that it was one rival each, very balanced. He wondered if the transmigrated Leo had tried to change his brother's fate. He asked how his story ended. This question made Leo pause for a moment before he answered that it wasn't too bad. That in the end, Caleb keenly picked up his unfinished sentence. Teasing, reformed? Leo gave a short yes. That ending was indeed much better than his own, dying after losing everything. In the subtle silence, Caleb's voice became even more relaxed. And you? What role do you play in the story? When answering this question, Leo avoided his gaze, looking down at the skin where his blood had just been drawn. He gently peeled off the tape over the cotton ball. An insignificant minor character. The needle mark on the inside of his elbow was faintly red. The bleeding had stopped. Caleb followed his gaze and was suddenly reminded of the blood that had trickled from his own collarbone the night before. He brought it up again with a smile, saying that yesterday it was really syrup and that it tasted very sweet. Leo responded that he knew he could smell it. Caleb then asked if he was afraid of him. Leo shook his head without hesitation. In the warm sunlight, Caleb's gaze traveled up from the nearby arm to Leo's handsome face. He seemed to sense an air of sincerity, so Caleb stopped walking. He looked steadily into the other man's bright, calm eyes. A few seconds later, he smiled, like someone who had just found a mermaid's tail swaying by a coral reef. The scent of the ocean seemed to cling to him, and his voice held a rare gentleness. He asked with a smile, "Then will you marry me?" This was the second time Leo had heard Caleb mention marriage. Compared to the obvious joke at their first meeting, this short question now held an undeniable certainty. Their eyes met. He saw Caleb's light brown eyes tinged with a pale gold from the summer light, looking at him with single-minded focus, waiting for an answer. Leo was momentarily lost in thought. A sudden silence stretched between them, making the busy morning sounds around them, car horns, footsteps of pedestrians, even more pronounced. A boundless cacophony. Caleb couldn't help but wonder what Leo was thinking. Unlike his surprisingly serious consideration and solemn response yesterday evening, Leo seemed much more mysterious at this moment. The fragmented shadows of the trees swayed across his deep-set brow, and his usually clear eyes held a dark, inscrutable color. At the same time, the owner of the breakfast diner next to them wiped the sweat from his forehead, peered out from beside a steaming bamboo basket, and called out to them enthusiastically, asking if it was a table for two and what they would like to eat. They had steamed buns, wontons, soup dumplings. Amidst the noise, the silence and darkness vanished. Leo glanced at the enticingly fragrant steamers next to them, then turned and asked Caleb seriously, "Which one do you like?" His tone held an unpracticed gentleness, implicitly accepting the shift in their identity and relationship. It was as if the earlier depth in his eyes had just been a trick of the light. Caleb couldn't help but smile. He liked this way of accepting a proposal. He said that they were all good, but that he liked the mini wontons the most. The owner quickly brought 2 steaming bowls. In the clear broth floated strands of seaweed and egg. The pure white wonton wrappers enveloped a small ball of meat, swirling in the bowl with tiny dried shrimp. It was light and delicious. Caleb thought that today's wontons had a special flavor, exceptionally comforting. The air was filled with the lively atmosphere of everyday life, quietly infusing the word marriage, which he had never considered before, with a sense of reality, even if it was just a contract marriage. Caleb didn't know why the him in the story was so obsessed with Luke Sanford. After all, until last night, his impression of the stranger was limited to being interesting. But he didn't know how the story's predetermined fate would manifest. What if it was an irresistible force? A respectable marriage would at least be a firewall, and his partner on the other side of that wall seemed to be a reliable teammate. However, although they had now agreed on a contract marriage, there were still many details to work out, like formalizing the agreement on paper and getting their respective families to accept their decision. After breakfast, Caleb was about to discuss the next steps with Leo when he looked up and saw him staring across the street. A low-key black luxury car had stopped outside the main entrance of the medical center. Soon, Leo's phone rang. Leo answered the call, saying, "Miles, I'm having breakfast across the street." Caleb raised his eyebrows in surprise, not only because of the sudden appearance of the brother, but also because of the subtle change in Leo's tone. He was very obedient in front of his brother. Although Leo was also compliant and easygoing with him, there was a slight difference. Under Caleb's interested gaze, the black luxury car made a U-turn and stopped next to the diner. The rear window slowly rolled down. Miles's features were somewhat similar to Leo's. Both brothers had inherited their father's sharp, handsome facial lines, but their temperaments were vastly different. It was clear that one was a gentle, steady older brother, and the other was a well-protected younger brother. The last time Caleb had seen him was probably in a business magazine. The young heir to the colossal catering giant, the Vanguard Group. A colleague at the clinic had been reading the magazine, and he had glanced at it casually. He never would have imagined they would cross paths like this. Miles didn't get out of the car. He spoke to Leo, who had walked over. He said he had planned to pick him up to look at cars. During their phone call at the coffee shop yesterday, he had promised to help Leo choose a car over the weekend. His tone was gentle, and he glanced at Caleb, who was still seated, a knowing smile on his face. He asked if he was interrupting them. Leo's reply was tinged with embarrassment. He said no, that they had already finished eating. Facing this number 2 villain, who was known to be slightly kinder than himself, Caleb acted completely at ease and very familiar. He joked that he thought he was here to cause trouble for him. The car window was fully down now. Miles smiled and asked him why. Caleb said with a playful air that he had several vials of blood drawn for a checkup, and that he himself had felt a bit dizzy just watching. It was all because he had lost a bet. As he should, Miles looked at his brother with a dawning realization, remarking on why he was at a clinic so early in the morning. Leo looked uncomfortable with the situation and said urgently that they wouldn't look at cars today, that Miles should go about his business and not worry about him. Miles's smile deepened. He said fine, he wouldn't be a third wheel, and told them to have fun. He gave a final nod to Caleb. The window closed, leaving only a receding black shadow. Watching the luxury car drive away, Caleb finally got up and walked over to Leo. He recalled what his mother had said when introducing the Hayes family before the date. Wealthy, close-knit, everyone doted on Leo. Caleb couldn't help but feel a little emotional. He commented that he didn't think he thought much of him or of Caleb himself. Leo looked over, a question in his eyes. Caleb joked that it was a supervillain's intuition, then admitted honestly that he had never gotten out of the car from beginning to end. As if he had everything under control just by sitting there with a kind of quiet condescension. Hearing this, Leo smiled but neither agreed nor disagreed. He simply said, perhaps. Caleb had no intention of interfering in his family matters and changed the subject, asking if he was buying a car. Leo shook his head, saying it was just something he had said offhandedly. He had told him yesterday that he had seen a very cool new car. Caleb asked if it was his car, since it was this year's new model. Leo confirmed that it was. Caleb's tone lifted. He said he had good taste. He offered to go with him to buy it, saying they could drive it off the lot today. Leo was a bit surprised, then met Caleb's eager eyes. He smiled and said that was a very good detail. An hour later, Caleb tossed his car keys to a familiar salesman, asking him to drive his car back to his house. He then got into the new car Leo had just purchased. It was the same model and configuration as his own sapphire blue Corvette, the only difference being the paint color. While Leo was getting familiar with the new car and trying to start it, Caleb, in the passenger seat, examined the interior, which was identical to his own. He explained casually that falling for someone often starts with liking their hobbies, like buying the same things they have. He didn't want his parents to suspect the real reason for his marriage, and he assumed Leo felt the same. So they needed to pretend to be in love. And love required details. Leo's hand on the steering wheel paused for a moment. Caleb's claim yesterday that he had a short fuse, snored, and had countless exes suddenly didn't seem like a complete joke. The first point was questionable, the second unknown, but the third seemed to have some plausibility. He wondered if he really hadn't deleted any of their numbers. The thought flashed through Leo's mind, but he didn't dwell on it. He quickly composed himself and focused on driving. The flamboyant flame-red sports car passed the stationary sapphire blue one. This was the color Leo and Caleb had decided on together. He asked Caleb where they were going next. He got a question in return. Caleb asked if he knew the best thing to do after buying a new car. Leo tried to think like Caleb. Street racing? Caleb laughed, teasing him about his dangerous ideas. As he spoke, he lowered his eyes and dialed a number. He said that this was the perfect time to experience. In the beeping sound of the call connecting, he paused slightly, his tone light. The weight of rules. At the Sterling Law Group office, from the moment Caleb walked in, Sawyer maintained an expression of disbelief, especially when he saw the two of them acting close. Caleb was composed, first introducing Leo to his friend Sawyer Sterling, his lawyer. Then he turned to his friend and said with a completely natural air that this was his boyfriend, Leo Hayes. Sawyer, using what little reason he had left, shook hands with Leo and greeted him. He handed them the prenuptial agreement he had just drafted, telling them to look it over. He explained that Caleb had been in a huge rush, so he had modified a template. Fortunately, the terms they had agreed upon were simple to handle. He said there might be things that needed to be changed or added, and to let him know if they had any issues. As he spoke, his voice rose, directed at Caleb. He exclaimed that he couldn't believe he was actually getting married and that he hadn't heard a word about it. He said he thought he was dreaming when he got his call. Sawyer paused, then turned to Leo, apologizing if he was being offensive, saying he was just so surprised. Leo, looking down at the agreement, said gently that it was fine, they could talk. Caleb shrugged, telling Sawyer he should feel honored to be the first to know. Sawyer's shock gradually turned to reverence. The first? So his aunt and uncle didn't know yet? He admired his guts for acting first and reporting later, him to be careful not to get beaten up. Caleb offered a perfunctory smile and thanked him for his blessing. Leo was multitasking, checking the terms of the agreement which he had already heard about in the car, while listening to the two friends chat. The agreement included the most direct asset protection clauses, simplifying the marriage from a union of two wealthy families to a union of two individuals independent of money. All premarital and postmarital assets would remain separate, with no need for division or proof. There were also clauses about non-interference in each other's private lives, and symbolic penalties for breach of contract. Caleb and Sawyer seemed to be very good friends. Leo thought as he used a pen to mark the sentences that needed revision. Then, hearing the next part of their conversation, the line he was drawing went askew. Sawyer had accepted his friend's flash marriage, but he was still curious about the reason behind it. He asked if he was finally done playing around. He and Caleb had been university classmates, in the same year but different majors. He knew well that Caleb had never been interested in relationships, but was passionate about having fun, seeking out anything interesting and amusing, from thrilling extreme sports to the Rubik's Cube a young patient couldn't solve. Caleb used to say he enjoyed this state of play, that he was happy on his own, and so was in no hurry to be in a relationship. He never expected him to rush into marriage now. Caleb understood what he meant. He said nonchalantly that marriage didn't have to stop him from having fun. He and Leo were just husbands on the surface. They wouldn't interfere in each other's lives. Sawyer completely misunderstood, giving Leo a curious look. He said that was great, then that it seemed he had found a like-minded partner. He had thought Leo would be a quieter type. It just went to show you can't judge a book by its cover. Under Sawyer's meaningful gaze, Leo silently stared at the crooked line on the paper. He couldn't find any way to comment on their overly direct conversation. He suddenly felt the reckless, villainous aura from Caleb. The countless X's was probably true. Of course, it had nothing to do with him. Leo collected himself and drew a new, straight line. Then Caleb sat down next to him, glanced at the agreement, and told Sawyer he wanted to add another clause. The gossip session over, Sawyer returned to work mode, sitting back at his desk and listening attentively. Caleb said he could not unilaterally file for divorce. It must be with Leo's consent. If he acted stubbornly, Leo was required to immediately tell his parents their most important secret in full. As the words were spoken, the other two men in the room looked shocked. Sawyer chose his words carefully, asking if that clause wasn't a bit too disadvantageous for him. Although he didn't know what the secret in the latter half of the sentence referred to, the clause was clearly a one-sided constraint, effective only on Caleb. Caleb didn't explain further, simply telling him to polish the wording and add it in. He then turned to Leo. Only Leo, who was right next to him, heard the next sentence. "I don't want to become someone even I don't recognize." He clearly saw the stubbornness and trust flickering in the other's eyes. Leo's fingers, still holding the pen, tightened subconsciously. Caleb was truly a complex person. The office gradually filled with only the crisp sound of the lawyer typing on his keyboard. After signing the agreement, as Sawyer saw them off, he looked at the dazzling new red sports car in the parking lot and couldn't help but give a sarcastic thumbs up. Red and blue, so tacky yet so classic. Caleb returned an elegant middle finger. See you at the wedding. Leo, as the only polite adult present, gave a courteous farewell. Goodbye, Mr. Sterling. He was driving on the way back. Leo slowly drove the car out of the parking lot. Beside him, Caleb was looking at their signatures on the last page of the prenuptial agreement. He spoke up, saying he would do his best to remind him to stay away from Luke Sanford. That was the only thing he would interfere with. Caleb put away the agreement and smiled at him. Thank you. Your handwriting is very nice. Leo nodded slightly. He asked practically where they were going. Hearing this question again, the corners of Caleb's mouth lifted. He said it was time to do something dangerous, something people who impulsively fall in love and believe they found their soulmate often do. He entered his home address into the navigation system. A mechanical female voice immediately began giving directions. Caleb said he remembered his mom kept the official household documents in the safe. They would go to his house first, then to his. If he was fast enough, they could still get their marriage license within 24 hours. The wind howled past the open car window, but Caleb's voice was exceptionally clear as he added, 24 hours from when we first met. After efficiently signing the prenuptial agreement, Leo thought he wouldn't be surprised by anything else. But Caleb always managed to astonish him in an indescribable way. He turned his head and saw the joyful smile in the other's eyes. Caleb said that he had offered to get married on the spot, and Leo had agreed, so they should keep their word. His marriage partner's gaze was clear and transparent, seeming to look right into his soul. And besides, it only took one day to go from strangers to married. After a brief moment of eye contact, Caleb turned his gaze to the wide road ahead. The sky at the end of the road shone with a brilliant light, faintly falling on the fiery tips of his hair, as if heralding the most beautiful sunset. It fits the immature, playful impression others have of us, doesn't it? The evening sky was filled with a hazy density, the air like scattered particles, rendering the everyday scenery with the texture of an oil painting. Today's sunset is pink, Caleb thought as he walked into his house. The large house was quiet, with only faint sounds coming from the kitchen, from which aromas of cooking occasionally wafted. The hired cook was busy and poked her head out upon hearing him, greeting him with a smile. "Caleb, you're back." Caleb smiled back and greeted her. "Hi, Mrs. Gable. What's for dinner?" She said it was all his favorites, and she had also made chicken soup because his mother wanted some. Caleb thought for a moment and asked if she had any cooling dessert soups. Mrs. Gable immediately started listing options, asking if he was feeling overheated and noting that this season was indeed quite agitating. She suggested white fungus soup or mung bean soup, since she had all the ingredients, and said she would go prepare it right away. Caleb thanked her and made a special request to remember to give his dad a large bowl later. Mrs. Gable paused, then a knowing expression crossed her face, and she laughed helplessly, saying she understood and would take care of it. Having prepared his preemptive cooling measures, Caleb went upstairs. He found Helena's safe and brazenly put the household register back, ignoring the triggered indicator light. 15 minutes later, familiar voices were heard downstairs on schedule. First, a fast-paced, irritable female voice. "Did you see Liam's face at the meeting? He really thinks you're a pushover. Sooner or later, I'm gonna find a chance to beat him black and blue." Then a gruff, powerful male voice. We agreed not to talk about work at home. We'll deal with it tomorrow. The female voice retorted that they hadn't closed the door yet, so it didn't count as being home. She suggested he use a training session as an excuse to take care of him. The male voice agreed. This was followed by the decisive slam of the front door. After a brief silence, Helena's gentle voice called from downstairs, "Caleb, honey, we're home." Faced with this daily, drastic contrast, Caleb couldn't help but laugh. He slipped the small red marriage certificate book into his pocket and went downstairs nonchalantly. "Dad, Mom." Helena, dressed in a dark red power suit, exuded a strong presence. She was casually kicking off her high heels and holding up a paper bag to her son, announcing that the old man across from the office was finally selling roasted chestnuts again, and he should eat them while they were hot. Following behind her, Caleb's father, Arthur, dutifully crouched down to neatly arrange his wife's high heels. The practiced movement, combined with his towering 6'3" frame, created a strangely harmonious picture. Caleb took the chestnuts his mother had bought, washed his hands, and sat down at the dining table, beginning to peel them dutifully. After peeling the first fragrant chestnut, he held it up to Helena. "Mom." Helena ate it with a smile, praising him as if he were a child, promising to buy him more next time. After Caleb had handed her 3 chestnuts in a row, she realized something was up and became alert. She asked if he wanted to go bungee jumping again this weekend, or if he wanted them to go to a haunted house with him. Helena observed her unusually well-behaved son, her brow furrowed. No, this looked like a new trick. Arthur, who was getting a beer from the fridge, interjected, "Is it the safe?" Helena was reminded. "Right, why did you open the safe twice this afternoon? What were you looking for?" If the external alarm hadn't been silent, I would have thought a burglar broke in. Caleb's parents ran a sizable security services company, a leader in the industry. From high-tech hardware providing systematic security solutions to highly trained elite security personnel, they did it all well. So the Thorn House, though unassuming on the outside, was equipped with a lot of security devices. Caleb turned to look out the window, answering a question with a question. "Mom, look, the sky is pink today." She followed his gaze, instinctively sitting up straighter, trying to decipher her son's mysterious train of thought. Arthur sensed the unusual atmosphere and immediately sat down, holding his beer bottle. Facing his parents, who were now sitting primly, Caleb smiled. "No need to be nervous. I just borrowed the household register for a bit." Helena's expression was momentarily blank with surprise. "The household register? What did you need that for?" Before she could finish, she saw Caleb pull a small red book from his pocket and place it calmly on the dining table. "I got married." Under the romantic pinkish glow of dusk, the golden words marriage certificate on the cover shone brightly. Helena's eyes widened. Arthur, who had been silently drinking his beer, choked violently. Amidst the splattering beer foam, Mrs. Gable rushed over with a cloth, exclaiming for him to be careful. In the chaos, Helena had already quickly found the celebrity psychic's contact information on her phone, ready to immediately inquire about how to resolve the fated disaster for her headstrong son. Before dialing the number, she sighed deeply and said mournfully, "What's meant to be will be. It's fate." The reason Caleb had been forced to go on blind dates all this time was because when Helena had taken him for readings as a child, every time the psychic had said his future would be disastrous due to his stubbornness in love, a bleak fate. Helena firmly believed in this prediction. And now, it strangely coincided with the novel plot Leo had described. Hearing Helena say this, Caleb shook his head seriously. He would not submit to a predetermined destiny. "I didn't act recklessly," he said. This is someone you're satisfied with. Helena paused, put down her phone, and instead picked up her son's marriage certificate. She took a deep breath before opening it. On the blue background photo, Caleb and his handsome partner were wearing matching white shirts, shoulder to shoulder, both smiling brightly. She blurted out, "It's Leo Hayes?" Arthur, still in shock, leaned over. He also blurted out, "Why isn't the background red?" "Ours was red." He then flipped the little red book over and over and declared with finality, "This must be a fake certificate." Caleb was speechless, helplessly pointing to his own vibrant hair. Red hair doesn't show up on a red background. Helena unceremoniously slapped away her oafish husband's meddling hands and carefully examined the photo on the certificate. After a moment, she looked up at her son, her tone softening slightly. "You look very happy in the photo." Mothers could always detect the subtle differences in their children's expressions. Caleb nodded without changing his expression. "I like him quite a bit. Getting married in a flash within a day. Such a thrilling and novel experience would, of course, make him smile happily. But you only had your date yesterday. This is too fast. You've only met once." As Helena spoke, she corrected herself. "No, you went out last night too. And all day today. Meeting 3 times right after you met, that seems quite frequent." Caleb spun a tale. "That's how love at first sight is. Comes on strong." Helena didn't know what to ask next and was silent for a while. Suddenly, another thought occurred to her. "You didn't tell us beforehand. Did Leo not either? Did his family agree?" Although this blind date was initiated by Leo's older brother, Miles, both families were in business, and both businesses were quite large. When it came to their children's marriages, they would inevitably be more considerate. Caleb said that marriage is between 2 people, and he felt their willingness was the most important thing. He added that they had signed a prenuptial agreement. All pre- and post-marital assets were separate and would not affect the family. This way, there was no issue of one person marrying for money. He continued, saying that Leo had a reliable quality about him that made people trust him. So he suddenly had the impulse to get married. Once he had that feeling, meeting him once or 100 times would have the same effect. Caleb's tone was quite serious. "Since that's the case, why wait? There's no time like the present, so we decided to get our license today. I hope our marriage can be a simple, pure thing. We have no financial ties, no one is dependent on the other. It's only about feelings. If we fall out of love in the future, we'll separate cleanly. Of course, if you're strongly against it, to the point where it affects our family relationship, I can go get a divorce certificate too." Caleb shrugged. "It's just a piece of paper, not a big deal." After hearing their son's words, Helena and Arthur looked at each other. Caleb, who had loved to play since he was a child, always had a way of persuading them to let him do things that seemed outrageous to others. The couple had often resisted and accepted at the same time, their psychological resilience constantly being tested. Hearing it this way, a flash marriage within a day really didn't seem like a big deal. Because they believed that, with their son's personality, it was entirely possible for him to get a divorce tomorrow. While they were frowning in thought, Mrs. Gable came out of the kitchen and opportunely served the steaming dishes. "Dinner's ready." Caleb got up to help her with the bowls and chopsticks. As night fell, the lights were warm and yellow. The dining table was laden with food, and the house was filled with a relaxed, everyday atmosphere. Helena, who had a good initial impression of Leo, began to try to accept the situation. Her biggest worry now was one thing. She put food in Caleb's bowl, her expression serious. "Caleb, be honest with me. Did I annoy you by making you go on blind dates so you found someone to just go along with it?" If that were the case, she absolutely could not agree. Caleb's tone was casual as he asked in return, "Mom, Do you think I would marry someone I don't like? It was precisely because he didn't want Helena to have such worries that Caleb wanted to frame this marriage as one born of love. He couldn't tell his mother the real reason, so he couldn't let her bear any undeserved guilt. Helena stared at her son for a long time before shaking her head. You wouldn't. Relieved, she propped her chin on her hand and muttered, "So it really was love at first sight? That was fast. Youth these days." On the other side, Arthur, a beat behind, complained, "I haven't even met the kid. How are they married?" Unlike Helena, who had arranged the date, he knew nothing about Leo, having only glanced at the photo on the marriage certificate. A stranger had bewilderingly become his son's partner, a future family member. The more Arthur thought about it, the angrier he got. He slammed his chopsticks down, full of ire. He doesn't look sturdy enough. He's definitely unreliable. I need to test this kid. Mrs. Gable, seeing her chance, brought over a bowl of white fungus soup. Don't be angry. Have some sweet soup. After half a bowl of the soft, sweet soup, Arthur, who had a sweet tooth, was quiet for 2 seconds before immediately finding a new fault. He said with a stern face, "They're married, and he hasn't even come to see us. No manners. He needs to be taught a lesson." Helena couldn't help but roll her eyes. It hadn't even been that long. The two of them had only met a few times. Arthur, immersed in his anger, emphasized with a heavy tone, "And why is the marriage certificate photo on a blue background?" Mrs. Gable laughed at this. She quickly brought over a large bowl of mung bean soup. "It's chilled to cool you down." Caleb winked at her, and she winked back. Listening to her husband's unreasonable complaints, Helena's fists tightened. She said angrily, "I told you, your son has red hair. He can't take a photo on a red background." Arthur didn't dare to talk back to her. He immediately fell silent and drank his mung bean soup. After a moment, he grumbled, "Tomorrow I'm going to the office to take care of Liam." Helena's anger subsided a bit. "Good. He needs to be taken care of." Arthur added resentfully, "And then I'll take care of that kid." Helena didn't want to deal with him anymore. "You're just a brute." Caleb watched the show while drinking his mung bean soup. He couldn't help but think of Leo, who must be at home dealing with his own parents at this moment. He had passed his trial. How would Leo convince his family? As he was lost in thought, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Gable, who was about to burst out laughing, hurried over. She looked at the video intercom and pressed the talk button. "Who is it?" Through the intercom, a slightly distorted but magnetic male voice spread through the room.
"Hello, I'm Leo Hayes."
Hearing this unexpected voice, Caleb was momentarily stunned. This time, Arthur choked on his mung bean soup. He turned red, fumbling in a panic. Why did he come without any notice? Helena shot him a sideways glance. So much drama. One minute he wants him to come, the next he doesn't. She quickly composed herself, adjusted her collar, and walked calmly to the door. The Leo on the screen looked just as he had in the photos she had seen before, though his hair was a bit messy from the wind and slightly damp with sweat, as if he had rushed over. But his eyes were surprisingly bright. Caleb came to his senses and walked quickly to his mother's side, a look of interest in his eyes. Arthur finally managed to stop coughing, grabbed a golf club, and also strode over. Leo didn't know that a family of 3 plus a cook were standing behind the screen. He stood by the gate outside the yard, looking at the suddenly silent intercom, and added, "I'm sorry. I didn't call ahead. I just wanted to drop off a gift. I don't want to disturb you. I'll leave as soon as I've delivered it." He spoke with sincerity. Mrs. Gable and Helena exchanged a look. They tacitly pressed a button on the video screen, switching to the security camera outside the yard wall. A vast expanse of dazzling red instantly filled their vision. It was the same model as Caleb's sapphire blue Corvette, but the body was a stunning flame red. The convertible top was down, and the passenger and back seats were piled high with blooming roses. Mrs. Gable was astonished. So many. How many could there be? Leo also didn't know that his car and flowers were being watched. He explained in a somewhat hesitant tone, "It was too rushed when we got our license this afternoon. I forgot to buy flowers. There should have been flowers. So I bought some and a few gifts." Looking at the few flowers on the screen, Arthur let out a cold, ambiguous snort. Tacky. The hand holding the golf club, however, loosened a bit. Helena's gaze softened slightly. She pressed the button to open the gate and asked, "What gifts?" The gate to the yard slowly opened, allowing the car to drive in. Caleb simultaneously opened the front door, looking across the lawn. The roses at the end of the path were even more vivid, their fragrance seemingly lingering in the air. Leo's voice still came through the intercom, honestly answering the unfamiliar woman's question. "Just small gifts for you and your husband." He turned and walked to the sports car, pulling out two beautifully wrapped gift boxes from under the roses. His voice became more distant. "There's a bottle of wine my dad has treasured for many years, and a piece of high-quality jade my mom said was blessed at a temple." Arthur loved to drink, and Helena was fond of seeking blessings. "Mrs. Gable chuckled and teased, "Oh, quite thoughtful." Watching the young man walking in with the gifts, Helena glanced back at her husband. Arthur had to look away, reluctantly hiding the golf club behind his back. She whispered to her son, who had been silent all this time, "Why only gifts for us too?" Caleb laughed softly. "I have a feeling I got something too." He felt he should probably update his impression of his new husband. Leo, who had walked in, greeted the elders respectfully. Mrs. Gable enthusiastically took the gifts from his hands. With his hands free, he took a small velvet box from his pocket. Seeing this jewelry box, Helena finally raised her eyebrows. After some simple pleasantries, she went to the kitchen to get a bowl and filled it with chilled mung bean soup. Arthur, unsure how to interact with Leo, could only stiffly start unwrapping the box of fine wine. During this gap when the elders were preoccupied, Leo placed the velvet box in Caleb's palm, apologizing that it was too rushed. He hadn't been able to ask for his opinion, so he should wear this for now. They would go customize a new style together when they planned the wedding. Caleb asked knowingly, "What's this?" Leo met his gaze for a moment, then leaned in close to his ear. The rich scent of roses clinging to his clothes swept over him, along with a warm, smiling whisper, a detail of love. 2 hours earlier, as dusk was falling, the atmosphere in the conference room was still stagnant, the discussion at a standstill. The employee who was speaking had beads of sweat on his forehead, occasionally glancing at the handsome, scholarly man in the main seat. When his speech faltered for the second time for a noticeably long period, the man interrupted. "Is that all?" His expression was still mild, but his gaze was stern. An invisible pressure made it hard to breathe. The employee immediately lowered his head and apologized nervously. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, it's my fault." In the trailing, anxious voice, the phone next to Miles's laptop screen lit up. He glanced at the caller's name and quickly answered. A familiar voice came through the receiver. "Miles, are you busy today? Are you working late? You have to come home for dinner tonight. I have something really important to tell you." Listening to his brother's chatter, Miles's gaze softened, and he replied, "Okay, After ending the call, he looked around at the cautious subordinates in the conference room and said faintly, "Meeting adjourned." The secretary next to him immediately picked up his laptop. Before Miles, dressed in a suit and tie, left, he left them with a single, flat statement. "Next time, be prepared before you call me." Watching their boss walk out of the conference room, everyone finally let out a long sigh of relief. The employee who had been speaking even wiped away a cold sweat and collapsed back in his chair. Thank goodness for Mr. Hayes's brother's timely call. Almost everyone thought so, although they couldn't hear his calls, from the fact that he took a call in the middle of a meeting and the subtle change in his expression. These outsiders could accurately guess who the caller was. Miles, who was usually decisive and had built a career at a young age, had an excellent relationship with his only brother, Leo. In wealthy families, which were often filled with conflicts of interest and scheming, the harmonious atmosphere of the Hayes family was rare. Perhaps it was because the family structure was exceptionally simple. The father, William Hayes, started from scratch as a young man with his childhood sweetheart and late first wife, beginning with a small food stall. He later built it up on his own, through nearly 40 years of trials and tribulations, finally creating the colossal, well-known catering giant, the Vanguard Group. There were no intricate family ties within the Vanguard Group, only the hardworking William Hayes himself and later, his business-savvy eldest son, Miles. William's other son had never entered the public eye, reportedly because he had no interest in business. But in any case, with such a vast fortune, however the brothers divided it, it would be enough for several lifetimes. In short, the Vanguard Group's business empire was vast, and William was busy all day, leaving little time for his family. His current wife, Sarah, was kind and sincere, and she took good care of both brothers. Perhaps because the eldest brother was like a father, the 10-year age difference meant Miles and Leo were very close. This was a story everyone knew, a reasonable story with no flaws. Half an hour later, Miles stepped into his house at dusk, loosening his tie. Today's sunset was pink. On the dining table was a bouquet of fresh pink roses, still dewy, which made Sarah, who was trimming them with a pair of scissors, look even more radiant. Seeing Miles home so early, Sarah asked if Leo had called him too. Miles nodded. She was even more puzzled, pointing to the bouquet. He said he bought it at a flower shop on the way home. She wondered why he would go to a flower shop for no reason. Miles said he didn't know and asked where he was. Sarah put the trimmed roses into a vase, her tone bewildered. "He's raiding your father's wine cellar." He came back in a whirlwind. Miles reassured her gently that he would go take a look. When he walked into the wine cellar, he saw Leo holding his phone, looking at the screen one moment and the labels on the wine racks the next, as if trying to find the most expensive bottle. Hearing the noise from the stairs, Leo turned and said immediately, "Miles, you're back." Miles stood halfway down the stairs, looking down at him from above. "The wine on the top shelf of the first cabinet is the best." Leo followed his gaze and carefully took it down. "Can I take this as a gift? Men of our parents' generation should all like wine, right?" Miles smiled. "That depends on who you want to give it to. What's the important news today?" Hearing this question, Leo put the bottle down, cleared his throat, and after a moment of preparation, solemnly took something out of his shirt pocket. "I got married." In the dim light of the wine cellar, the golden text on the bright red cover was faintly visible. A fleeting look of surprise crossed Miles's face. After a brief silence, he looked at Leo's expectant gaze and asked, "With Caleb?" Leo's excitement was palpable. "Yes, you were right, Miles. He's a very special person." Miles's hand instinctively gripped the stair railing, his tone gentle. "But you only met yesterday. Why did you decide to get married today? Leo's action was beyond his expectations. I like him. Leo's answer was simple and direct. And he likes me too. That shouldn't be the answer. Miles's attitude became even more patient. I'm not against you two spending time together, but isn't this a bit too fast? A thought occurred to him, and he said in a serious tone, Are you two messing around again? Like losing a bet so you went to the hospital for a blood draw? A flash of unease crossed Leo's face, and he denied it vehemently. Of course not. Why would I joke about something like this? Miles looked at him, the fingers on the railing gradually relaxing. He reminded him as an older brother, marriage is not a game. It seemed he had found a piece of the right answer. I know. I'm not treating it as a game, Leo said, his head down. I really like him. And him? He does too. He was the one who proposed. The always obedient brother's eyes were shining. Miles recalled the red-haired young man he had seen that morning. Frankly, apart from family background, his brother was clearly overshadowed by Caleb. Just as Leo had worried after the blind date, maybe he was too boring. Yet Caleb had taken an interest in such a Leo and even hastily decided to get married. A dominant partner, an unequal relationship, a rushed and rash decision, an uncertain motive, all the elements that would lead to an unhappy outcome. Miles felt as if he could already see the puzzle that would be slowly filled in by time in the future. So his fingers left the railing, and his voice softened. It's your marriage, and you should be the one to decide. If you think it's right, then do it. The good-natured older brother habitually indulged him. Thanks, Miles. Leo, excited, looked up at Miles on the stairs and pleaded, You'll help me convince Dad, right? Miles smiled, not answering directly, but looked at the bottle of wine that had been set aside. Mr. Thorne likes to drink, so you're right to give him wine. Mrs. Thorne is a bit superstitious. She had Caleb's fortune told, which is why she made him go on blind dates. Dad will be back soon. Don't stay down here too long. Miles turned and left the wine cellar, his warm parting words dissipating on the cold, hard steps. After a long moment, Leo, still standing in the same spot, picked up the bottle of wine with a blank expression. Arrogant people often only believe the answer they want to hear. They are always confident that things will not get out of control. Following this principle, dealing with the calculating Miles was not too difficult. Leo walked silently up the stairs, his clear footsteps echoing in the quiet space. In the story he had yet to tell Caleb in detail, the villainous Caleb was not the only one who met a bad end. The Leo in the story had lived for over 20 years in naive stupidity, always immersed in the happy illusion Miles had deliberately woven for him, mistakenly seeking his brother's approval and praise, until everything he had ever owned in his life collapsed, and he fell into an abyss from which there was no return. This was one of his greatest regrets before he died. Leo would not let such a regret be repeated. Like Caleb now, he had to do his utmost to change the destiny that was doomed to destruction. Outside the window, the night was deep. Under the reflection of the pale pink roses, a dinner filled with surprise was spread out on the table. Sarah was easy to please. She saw the new car Leo had just bought, which was completely different from his usual taste. Remembered her son's excited departure the previous night, and the roses he had brought back on a whim tonight. She was almost instantly convinced of this sudden rush of love. She did not object to this abruptly formed marriage, and even supported her son who was currently falling in love, as long as Leo was happy. Sarah's only two complaints were that Leo had taken the household register without telling her, making her miss the important moment of her son's registration, and that he should have brought Caleb home with him today. William Hayes, who rarely came home early for dinner, was different. He was at an age where he knew his fate. His short black hair was streaked with silver. He had just returned from inspecting a factory, his expression showing an undeniable fatigue, but he still listened seriously to his younger son's account of the eventful day. Especially the joy that overflowed when he sat next to his partner and watched the photographer press the shutter. After listening, William said nothing. Only under Leo's increasingly nervous gaze did he nod slightly, indicating that the family should eat first. His gentle yet stern demeanor was very much like Miles's. More accurately, Miles was like him. Leo had only taken a few bites when he couldn't help but say, "Dad, you won't object to us being together, will you?" he asked urgently. William had to put down his chopsticks and chose his words carefully to answer his younger son. "I don't object." Before Leo could be happy, he heard his father continue, "But I don't support it either. I think you lack understanding of each other and should spend more time together." William's voice was steady. "The license is already obtained, so we'll leave it at that for now. As for the wedding, we'll consider it later." Leo wanted to say more, but Miles, who had been listening, spoke up. "Let's eat first. The food is getting cold." Miles put some food on his brother's plate. "We'll talk about this later." He then turned to his father and said with a smile, "Dad, I've met Caleb. He's a good young man." William was non-committal, listening as his very tactful older son turned to talk about daily trifles, occasionally responding. Leo finished his dinner quickly, took the jade he had asked his mother for and the wine he had chosen before dinner, and was eager to leave. Sarah was listing books for the housekeeper to buy, half of which were about managing a marriage and the other half about how parents should interact with their married children. She saw him and called out, "Where are you going?" Leo glanced at his father, who was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper, and cleared his throat. "I ordered flowers and rings. I'm gonna pick them up now." Sarah finally understood. She smiled and said complainingly, "So the flowers for me were just an afterthought." "My mistake, Mom," Leo said as he walked out, coaxing her. "I'll buy some especially for you tomorrow. I'm just teasing you. Come back early tonight." Sarah watched his back, then thought for a moment and quickly added, "It's okay if you don't come back. Just let us know. I'll be back." Leo's voice drifted back. "Dad, you were hiding it anyway, so I only took one bottle." William shook his head helplessly and silently turned the page of the newspaper. The newlyweds eagerly left the house, their steps light with joy. His figure was elongated by the garden lights. In the dark night, it was almost rendered into a completely unfamiliar shape. Miles stood by the window, thoughtfully gazing at his brother's back, until, before entering the garage, he turned to look back at the house, and then, as usual, waved to his respected older brother. Miles smiled and nodded in response. Still the same naive, simple brother. The flame-red sports car sped away. Leo picked up the flowers, the rings, wrapped the gifts, and visited the elders he was meeting for the first time. Caleb had made a good start, so he decided to continue the act of pretending to be in love. In the unfamiliar Thorne family dining room, the chilled mung bean soup had a dense, cool sweetness. After a brief chat with Leo, Mrs. Thorne dragged away the intimidating-looking Mr. Thorne and Mrs. Gable finished her work and rested. The elders tacitly left the space for him and Caleb. Caleb, who had just had dinner, thought for a few seconds and invited him. "Want to go for a walk?" Leo heard his own gentle voice reply, "Okay." Outside, the evening breeze was on their faces, the heat mixed with a repressive humidity, like a silent storm. After a long day, in the night filled with the chirping of cicadas, a trace of fatigue finally welled up in Leo's heart. In front of his family, he pretended to be a completely different person. In front of Caleb, he had to carefully consider how to handle his relationship with the dangerous villain. It was not an easy task to navigate a strange and complex story. He needed to gain the support of the family head, William Hayes, as soon as possible, hold a wedding, and then logically move out of the house to start a relatively free new life. The lover beside him was unaware of his thoughts, simply looking up at the bright, clear moon in the night sky. The watery moonlight fell on the tips of his fiery hair. "Did you handle them?" Caleb asked. Leo knew what he was asking and replied, "My dad still needs time to accept it." "So you got past your brother?" Caleb also understood his implication and said with approval, "Impressive." Leo said no more, standing quietly in the tranquil night, bathed in moonlight. After a while, Caleb suddenly laughed softly and looked at him sideways. "Are we partners in crime? Partners who were the only ones who knew the secret, conspiring to deceive their closest relatives." Leo thought that, compared to partners, this seemed to be a more appropriate description. Before he could respond, Caleb asked again, "I remember you said you don't like men?" Leo nodded slightly. "Then it will be a bit harder for you." Caleb seemed to be seriously considering it for him. "We're married now, so physical contact in front of others is unavoidable." Leo said, "I'll cooperate." "Really?" Caleb looked at him with interest, his meaning clear. "My parents are probably peeking at us from behind the window right now." Leo understood. "Should we hold hands?" Caleb looked at the hand he extended, couldn't help but laugh, and teased, "That's a handshake." He touched Leo's arm, gesturing for him to put it down, and then walked forward. "Let's go for a walk." Leo walked beside him across the lawn. The grass under their feet was soft and sprawling. In an ordinary moment, a passionate warmth came to the palm of his hand hanging by his side. Caleb looked at him with crinkled eyes, as if he had found something fun. "Just bear with it. Think of it as friendship between partners in crime." Leo's steps faltered slightly, then quickly returned to normal. He felt a warmth that seemed to offer a moment of respite. So he quietly relaxed the tension in his palm, actively seeking the spaces between their fingers, until their fingers were intertwined. From behind, they looked like an intimate couple, their long, dark shadows intertwined on the road. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "You learn fast. What should I call you?" Under the dim yellow streetlight, Leo's expression was calm as he walked hand in hand with him, his voice gentle. "Caleb?" After their walk, back outside the house, Caleb watched Leo drive away, standing by the roadside and waving lazily. When the sound of the car engine had completely faded, having put on a good show, he turned and walked back into the house. The house was filled with the rich scent of roses. Mrs. Gable had moved them to the balcony before she left, saying they could be made into sachets when they dried, so as not to waste so many fresh flowers. As soon as Caleb entered, he saw his mother, who had deliberately stayed in the living room waiting for him. Helena was leaning on the sofa with a face mask on, asking in a gossipy tone, "Is the ring nice?" In fact, he hadn't opened the velvet box yet, so he could only say vaguely, "It's okay. I'll wear it for now and change it later." Helena said "oh" and changed the subject. "You two look quite good together." Caleb knew her too well and laughed. "Mom, what are you trying to say?" "Nothing," Helena said in a low voice. "Leo seems like a good kid, but if things don't work out, you deal with him. Your dad and I will deal with him with you." She spoke quickly, as if not wanting her son to get annoyed, and then changed the subject again. The registration was so rushed. "Do you still want a wedding? Do you want to have one?" "Yes," Caleb answered patiently. "We haven't decided on a style yet. What kind do you like?" With their family backgrounds, the wedding would certainly not be a quiet affair. "I need to think about it." There are so many new styles now. Helena was finally a little happier. She muttered, right, I need to find someone to pick an auspicious date. Seeing the worry and reluctance behind his mother's relaxed expression, Caleb unusually did not object to her superstitious behavior. He went to the kitchen to heat some milk, placed it in front of Helena, and carefully inserted a straw. Go to bed early after your mask. I'm going upstairs to shower. In the quiet night, his mother, curled up on the sofa, waved to her son, who suddenly had a partner. Caleb, good night. Caleb held the small, sturdy ring box in his palm. His usual carefree and unrestrained demeanor was gone. He looked back and responded gently, Good night, Mom. The long and special day was finally over. Caleb seized the tail end of the weekend and slept until the sun was high in the sky. When he woke up the next day, he said he was going to find Leo. Helena, back to her usual self, immediately waved him out the door. Walking through familiar streets, Caleb walked alone into the Scalpel Bar, where the neon lights had not yet been turned on. It was not yet opening time, so there were no customers. The traces of the previous night's revelry were everywhere. Julian was holding a ladder, and a bar employee standing on it was carefully taking down the movie poster. The white corner of the villainous doctor's coat was rolled up and placed in a deep poster tube. Julian was a little surprised to see him. In broad daylight, a rare guest. Caleb smiled. Just came to sit for a bit. Coming to this place again, which once meant happiness and relaxation, he now had a completely different state of mind. This was the starting point of his destiny's sharp turn. He sat down at the bar. Julian, finished with his work, came over to serve him personally. What can I get you? On the bar was a storage box filled with small items like phones, glasses, and keys. Caleb glanced at it and said, Anything. Then I'll make you a heartbreak special, Julian teased. Usually only people who've had their hearts broken can order it. You're an exception. He skillfully mixed the drink, chattering about trivial matters. We went crazy last night, didn't stop until morning. I'm getting old. I slept for a whole day to recover. As soon as I came back, I felt like a pawn shop owner, waiting for these kids to come looking for their lost things. By the way, you left early that day. The first time you've left in the middle of it in years. Were you busy? At this point, Julian gently pushed the glass in front of him and finally adopted a serious tone, asking his obviously troubled old friend, Caleb, what's wrong? Hearing this name, a complex emotion flashed across Caleb's face. He reached out and held the glass. There were no marks of a ring on his long, fair fingers. I can't really say, Caleb said in a low voice. He was just a little lost. A kind of mangran that slowly grew after temporarily escaping a storm, while gazing at the calm sea. Caleb didn't know when the next storm would come, or if it would come at all. But his life had been irrevocably changed. He had to walk hand in hand with a strange lover and do his best to deceive his closest family. Although he usually found pleasure in seeking novelty, and although he tried to convince himself that it was all necessary, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of doubt at certain moments. Was everything he was doing now correct? Julian observed his dark, uncertain expression and said understandingly, If you want to talk, just let me know. If not, there's plenty of alcohol. I'll remember to call a car to take you home. I'll try not to let you pass out here until dark. Caleb's lips curved into a smile. Okay. There was a knock at the door. Anyone here? Julian answered loudly and practically. Looking for something? Come in. The door opened and closed. A stranger walked to the bar and said to Julian, Hello. I was here with a friend on Friday night. I just found out today that he lost a set of keys to his school lab. He's gone home, so I came to look for them. Julian pointed to the storage box. They're all in here. After you find it, you need to register your phone number and the item you took, in case you took the wrong one. Okay, thanks. Caleb stared at the glass in front of him, lost in thought, not paying attention to the surrounding activity. Until the other person called out to him, "Caleb Thorne?" Caleb froze, belatedly realizing that the stranger's voice was somewhat familiar. He turned and saw the tall young man with a cold, distant air. Luke Sanford, seeing the sudden look of astonishment on his face, paused. "I didn't remember your name wrong, did I?" Luke, with his outstanding looks, was often approached by people. He usually forgot them immediately. That night, he had been dragged to the bar by his friends to watch a horror movie. He had been calculating a difficult formula in the midst of the reveling crowd when a red-haired stranger handed him a clipboard and chatted with him for a few sentences. He hadn't paid it much mind at the time, but after they exchanged names, the other person's expression seemed somewhat lost, and he had abruptly ended the conversation. The subtle strangeness had left an impression on him. Now, seeing Caleb drinking in a bar in broad daylight, Luke frowned and asked, "Were you okay that day?" Caleb was stunned for several seconds before he managed to say, "No, I'm fine." The sudden storm crashed down on the sea. He did his best to maintain a calm exterior, feigning a relaxed chat. "You're looking for something?" At the same time, Caleb gently pushed the glass in his hand towards the inside of the bar. Luke nodded. A friend lost his keys. Seeing the half-full glass being pushed over, Julian understood immediately and began to rummage through the storage box. He grabbed a random set of keys and said to Luke, "Is this it?" Every time Caleb was annoyed by strangers trying to chat him up and wanted to resort to violence, he would give him this signal. Luke's attention shifted. "No, it only has 2 keys. 2. Oh, I see it. It's this one." The sound of metal clinking. Luke bent down and wrote down the item name and his contact information in the registration book. After putting down the pen, he asked Julian, "Do you often hold events like the one the other night? The scalpel movie night?" Julian said with a smile, "We hold it on the anniversary of the movie's release, on the anniversary of classic death scenes in the movie, and whenever I feel like rewatching it." Luke was succinct. "Where can I find notifications about the events?" "My social media," Julian said cheerfully, taking out his phone for him to add as a friend. He teased, "I remember you. I thought you weren't interested in the movie." Luke didn't deny it, admitting frankly that kind of atmosphere helps to open up new ideas. Having finished his business, he politely said goodbye to the newly acquainted bar owner and Caleb, took the keys and left. After he was gone, Julian waved his phone at Caleb and remarked, "Judging by his profile, he's probably a graduate student. To be able to think about these things while everyone else is going crazy, that's impressive. I thought you were interested in him that day." "I was thinking, so you like this type?" Julian asked curiously, "Why did you get annoyed after just a few words today? Did your taste change so quickly?" As he moved, the light from the friend's profile page on the screen flickered. Everything about Luke Sanford seemed to be within reach, dangerously swaying. Caleb almost instantly looked away and said in a low voice, "Maybe." He suddenly remembered the noisy hot chicken restaurant, Leo earnestly telling him the story details used as evidence, the memory related to his 5th birthday and love. And last night, walking hand in hand with Leo, the intermittent chirping of cicadas in the quiet bushes. The undeniable reality and the indistinguishable future suddenly intertwined into a bottomless sea. Caleb sat there quietly. The heartbreak special by his side was never finished, until the crystal glass was stained with the brilliant colors of the night outside. The bar gradually became lively. He stood up silently and left. Standing under the same neon sign, Caleb dialed that number for the 2nd time. The other end connected quickly. Leo's clear voice came through his ear, still with a gentle tone. "Caleb?" At that moment, an inexplicable emotion surged in Caleb's heart. He gripped his phone tightly and asked directly, "In the book, where did I see Luke Sanford for the second time?" The other end of the line was suddenly quiet for a moment, as if in thought. The voice that came again was more cautious. "A bar. A bar." Caleb's fingers almost loosened their grip. He pressed the smooth phone with all his strength and said, "Word by word, you have to tell me what happens next. I need to know all the details of the story." Before Leo could speak, he continued, "I saw Luke Sanford again. At the bar.